Hey guys, so I thought I'd do one of these shop-made tool segments. I'm not sure who came up with this. I suspect it was probably John Creasy, but I'm not positive about that. He seems to come up with a lot of these little cool ideas to do these things to sort of network among smaller YouTube channels as well as a couple bigger ones. But anyway, this is under the hashtag shopmadetools, and I have a collection here on the table of a couple small tools that I've made, and then I also have some larger tools that I'm going to share as well, which are in some cases adaptations to tools, not necessarily tools, but they're tools nonetheless. A lot of this stuff I've videoed, so I'm going to start with the smallest thing here first and move on to the larger items. Almost gave it away there. I might have given it away, I don't know, I wasn't looking at the camera. Ugh. So a long time ago I had a fairly expensive motorcycle gas tank in the shop, and I needed to get it open to look inside of it, and it had a locking gas cap on it. So I looked online and there was, you know, several lockpick alternatives, but I decided why not just make my own. And this is what I came up with. I basically just kind of copied the shape that I saw in the pictures and kind of guessed at the size. It's just a piece of stainless steel, and then I took an Allen wrench and ground a little flat on it. I actually did a really nice job grounding that flat on there with an angle grinder. And I actually found a lock to test this out. I haven't used this or tested it in a long time, several years actually, but check the video out. Okay, so that's my lock pick with its special carrying case so it doesn't get lost. Next up I have one that I've done a video on. I hadn't done a video on that, by the way. That was many years ago. I did a video on this. This is to remove valves from motorcycle motors, from engines, motorcycle heads. And you basically use a big C-clamp on here, and these windows allow you to get the keepers, the valve keepers, out with a magnet. I have a whole video on that. I'll put a link in the description. This one I made right when I got my lathe. This is one of my first lathe projects basically, and it's a wiggler. You know, real common thing. And you can tell I was very bad at knurling. I still am bad at knurling. But it works. It's not the most pretty thing. It's kind of higgledy-piggledy. But it does work as a wiggler. If you don't know what a wiggler is, that's just usually to find the center of to center up your spindle on a hole. And it's just by eyesight. Just get the wiggler till it's steady, turn it while it's turning, and that'll tell you where the center of the hole is. And of course, the upgrade to that was this guy, which I have a whole video series on. I believe there's 6 videos in total. This is a coaxial indicator that I made from scratch from plans from my, I'll call him my friend Bill Todd. Got to know him over the last year or so, and really cool guy, comes up with a lot of great designs, does some interesting CAD work. You got to check his channel out. I'll put a link in the description as well as a link to this guy if you're interested more in it. This was the most involved tool I've ever made, and it is the most beautiful tool I've ever made, for sure. So check that out if you're interested. This is kind of a joke, really. Just some old 2x4s cut up to make some holders. Everybody makes these things. At the time when I made these, just had a drill press, and I was pretty proud of these when I made them because they turned out pretty well. Now this one actually has a specific purpose, and it's to do a job that I do quite commonly. And these are the 3 bits that I use for that job. But that gives us onto this tool, which is actually a collet. And I have a whole video on it as well. And it is to hold a piece of chrome in the lathe, a piece of chromed metal or chromed aluminum in the lathe, to hold it without scratching it. And this piece of Delrin has done at least 100 of those things and never failed. So I know that at the time I made it, a lot of people thought, well, you're going to have to do a little bit of modification on that to get it to work. But actually, it's worked very well. And in my world, if it's not broke, I barely try not to fix it. This is also kind of a little joke, but not really. It actually did work. When I first got my drill press, the spindle in it was way out. It was maybe 10 thousandths out. So I actually used this, put the spindle in between the 2 points, but I could tell at each section that I put an indicator on how far it was out in that section. And then I used my next tool to straighten that shaft. So this is my homemade press. Now, I built this before I started doing videos as well, and it is worked fantastically. It's made out of some trailer iron that I cut a trailer apart and put it together. It's got stuff hanging all over it, whatnot, but it has to reside outside. I just don't have the room inside. It's got 5/8 stainless pins. It is approximately 3 foot tall and gives me an area in there about 18 inches altogether, I think. I've done I have a video doing the Lexus front bearings, which are double bearings, which I think are meant to be removed by a 20-ton press. And if you watch online, if you watch any videos of people doing them, they're always a pain. And it did work on that with some heat. The bottle jack is just about junk right now, though. It is a 12-ton, but I don't think it's really putting out much more than 6-ton right now. I do need to redo that. One of the cool things about this, though, is that it's very easy to change the bottle jack or to put whatever you want on it. And I think in future what I'm going to do is get a hydraulic ram and put on it. Maybe powered, maybe just hand crank sort of thing. I'll mount the pump on the side and have the ram in the center. But let me show you this real quick. So the way I did this was I actually just kind of hung the bottle jack from the top. You can see there's 2 rails here, one on each side. And this is all bolted together. It's not welded together, so I could take it apart as needed. So basically all I have to do is get a new bottle jack and put some sort of hoops on the bottom here for the springs, and it will go right back in. Now, like I said, when I do this again, I'm going to likely use a hydraulic ram of some sort. These side pieces are just a guide, just kind of keep the bottle jack in the center. But it's worked really well, and it's pretty old, roddy iron, but it does work well. I think it would easily handle about 20 tons, especially if I got some stronger pins. So then there's this guy, my stand for the Milwaukee bandsaw, and I'll throw some video in here. I did do a video on this, not making it, but kind of an in-depth video about it. This was a design roughly based on Chuck Bomarito's design, and it's worked very well. I use it quite a bit. I have not replaced the electrics in this, though I do have them. I have all new electrics for it. So that's a video coming up, when I get there. It's a very simple design. You do need one piece. I'm sure somebody could fabricate that. Chuck actually sent me that. Chuck is Outside Screwball, in case you don't know. If you're not subscribed to him on YouTube, he is Outside Screwball. Now that's a knife. So this is an old chipper blade that I put on some handlebars to strip bark off of trees, and it worked very well. Honestly, it's probably easier just to use a chainsaw to do it, but you do get a workout, and it makes you feel old-timey, you know, like you're working in the 1800s. And it's just a chipper blade and an old crappy pair of handlebars off a motorcycle that I kind of cut down a little bit on the ends. With a pair of gloves and some time, you can strip some bark off for sure, but like I say, chainsaw's better. I did get some pretty nice welds for, at least these are nice welds, for a 110 MIG welder. And the last bit of shop-made tools, and this is not the last tool I've made, but I thought I would finally show this. This is a tool that I made a long time ago that I've never showed in a video. And the reason I have never showed it in a video is because it was sort of a failure. It does work, but sort of a failure. See, I haven't ever even painted it. Still got my marks from right and lefts on it. This is probably 10 years old at this point, but I do keep it inside because I am going to revisit this at some point. Well, what is it, do you say? It's a bench brake. It will bend approximately 36 inches of metal, and I think I've done 16 gauge with it, I think. The problem is that I had a major design flaw, or I like to say a geometry fail. And let me get a piece of metal here and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Now these lifts, which hold this triangular piece down, which grips the piece of metal, as you see the metal slips through and then this piece goes down onto it, they're actually spring loaded. I used valve springs. Put it over here a little bit. So as you loosen, they actually will rise. And then I have this bar which screws in under here. And you just lift like so. And then we loosen up our center bar. Metal out. Now here's the design flaw. That's as tight a radius as I can get, which is a huge radius. We're talking like a ½ inch radius there. You know, most brakes I think will do, you know, maybe an 1/8 inch radius. ½ inch ain't gonna cut it. And the reason for that is that, like right here, if you look right here, as I come up, I just got the pivot in the wrong place. See all that gap down there? There shouldn't be that gap. What I should have done was notched this out, brought this back, notched this out, brought this pivot farther this way. That way we'd get this edge closer to the bend edge as we came around. One of the interesting things, which is not original, I don't think, but you don't see them on a lot, is this little feature here. This, like I said, there is a spring inside this little box, and that raises and lowers it as you take tension off of the bolt, so that you don't have to. So the center bar, which is what you're bending against, this triangle piece, you don't have to constantly lift and place it. You just unscrew it, it comes up, you slide your piece in, and it goes back down. A lot of a lot of homemade bench brakes don't have that option, so I thought that was pretty cool that I could get that in there, and that it did work. But like I said, never completely completed. Kind of always annoyed me, but I will get back there at some point. You know I will get back there because it stays inside, so it's taking up inside space. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. It's just a couple of homemade tools that I've made, shop-made tools, if you will. And whoever started this thing, I appreciate you doing it as always. And I think it's these little hashtag things are a great idea to get a few extra views for some smaller channels that don't necessarily always get the exposure. Mine being one of them. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching.